Good evening and welcome to the Mancunian way. While Rich just, you see the midriff of Rich.
Organises his life.
Telling me. Anyway, gentlemen, I'm going to say hello and goodbye in a minute. I'm despairing. Yeah, I'm waiting for a call off the doctors, my mum and dad. So I'm going to depart in a minute and let you three discuss everything transfers. I do apologise, but family comes first, as we've always said on this channel. So I will still play with the comments, and I've got some images that I'm going to show as well. Because City have made a signing, it's now officially today. It's gone through, so I'm sure the lads will open up about that. And then they'll go into a number of names that I will stick some images up, and I will get your comments up. So good evening to every single person in the chat. I apologize, I'm about to start, but I will come back near the end. So over to these three gentlemen, and I will see you all shortly.
Right, I suppose we may as well start with City's latest signing, I suppose, gentlemen. What do we think? And there he is, yep, in City blue.
Kind of
what do we think, guys?
Like,
Rich?
Looks a little bit like Stevan Jovetic.
He looks like my old mate of mine. I'm going to bet, obviously, about 25 years younger. But no, I think, yeah, we've got to be realistic. It's a signing of a player who's very highly rated from Argentina, who sounds like they're going to come in and be looked at by the club before they go anywhere else. Obviously, in recent times, you know, that's been a very, you know, very rewarding for us with Julian Alvarez, you know, going from, you know, probably a year ago, relatively unknown to City fans, to having an absolutely storming last 6 months at River Plate, and then, you know, coming to City looking good and going and winning the World Cup. And obviously had Enzo as well, you know, going to Benfica, and, you know, going from 8 million to 120 million in 6 months as well. But, you know, I remember an Argentinian young lad I was equally excited about, a young Matias Veroso signing for us probably about 15 years ago to great excitement. And, you know, that one didn't work out. And we had another young lad we signed a few years ago, 16-year-old, that got us in trouble with the authorities a bit, although in the end we were cleared, who did so well at City, even though he was the best young player in Argentina at the time, that I can't actually remember his name, other than we signed him at 16 when we shouldn't have done till 18, according to the club we signed him from. So I think it's mixed. I think we just have to be open-minded about this signing. You know, the hopeful side of us can all think this is the next Alvarez, you know, the next, you know, top quality Argentinian player coming in. But we have to be realistic that coming to Europe, coming to a club the size of City may be too much at once. Maybe someone who needs to go off on loan for a while. And, you know, it may be something that works out. And, you know, Keiki, very high reputation, amazing player in Brazil. And, you know, obviously at, you know, a young age, that was too much for Keiki coming not just to City, but actually coming to a European team full stop. And now he's back at, you know, our Brazilian affiliate for, I think, 18 months or something. So we just have to be open-minded and not expect too much.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rich. I think that's a sensible way of looking at things. Pat, do you want to have your say?
Yeah, in regards to Perrone, you know, just take it with a pinch of salt at the moment. There's only a certain amount of, you know, YouTube compilations you can watch with Bulgarian house music in the background to really get yourself sort of hyped up over a new player. But look, the guy shows a lot of promise. But again, I just take it with a pinch of salt, because we've been down this road before, as Rich alluded to. We're talking about Keiki, who just when we thought he was, you know, ready to hit his straps, he's back in Europe. He's back in Brazil. Another example I could use is Marlos Moreno as well too, who was touted as this, next big thing from South America, and then he seemed to just get loaned out. It'd be like one small little column inch online every single July that he's off to another European club or something like that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, apart from Alvarez, the last time we had a South American talent hit the straps was probably Gabriel Jesus. But there's a lot of promise, a lot of potential. I feel positive about this guy. I feel like our transfer business, from an international standpoint, seems to be improving over years. So there's a lot of promise with this. Alec, I just saw your comment there. Yeah, it does feel more like a Pep signing rather than just a CFG signing or just a future loan signing. So if Rich alluded to the possibility of a loan spell, I could see that happening. But I kind of hope that this guy's talented enough that maybe he might be able to elbow his way into the squad. Maybe not this season, probably more than likely next season. I think the best chance we'll see him in a City shirt is definitely in a pre-season.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I know about him is that he was highly rated, as in like he was going to be Enzo Fernandez's replacement at Benfica before obviously the whole collapse of his transfer to Chelsea happened. That Benfica were seriously looking at that he was going to be the replacement. So if you think, a club like that looking at this 19-year-old kid and thinking that he could potentially be replaced. I mean, Benfica have a brilliant way of turning these talented kids into world stars that they keep on selling. I mean, if you think about it, the amount of players that we've had from them, it's a production line. So to me, it feels that City have picked Benfica at the post for this signing because they feel that this is a kid that is worth it. That I think Pep and the rest of the backroom staff will probably see what he can do in training, and they'll decide from there, I suppose, whether or not he has the odd moment here and there, or whether he needs to go out on loan. And I think it's just an exciting promise from the transfer dealings of City that they are really kind of getting on top of these things now and looking at more talent and bringing it in younger, and they can mould them better. And under Pep Guardiola, you can't think of a better teacher, really, him being a CDM, really. So, yeah.
I have to mention, too, the fact that, we managed to snap up this guy over Benfica should fill everybody with a lot of confidence, too, because if there's two clubs in Europe that I love the idea of getting a player over, is Benfica and Borussia Dortmund, who collectively probably are the top, definitely two of the top three teams in Europe in terms of talent and scouting. And
you don't like it when a player we're about to sign decides they're going to go to United at the last minute and then comes to City anyway.
Yeah.
Or we're rumoured to sign someone who's a bit rubbish, and we're really rumoured to sign them a bit rubbish, and then United come in and offer 20 million more. And I always enjoy those ones.
Yeah.
The other thing is
recruitment and the way that they're able to resource. Sorry, Rich, just quickly concluding what I was saying. Yeah, just the fact that the way that they're able to recruit, the way they develop, and obviously as a result, the proof's in the pudding by how much they're able to sell their players onwards. It does fill me with a lot of promise to know that we're able to snap up this guy, very affordable, and before these clubs that have a fantastic reputation for development. That does fill me with a lot more confidence.
And I'd add three more clubs to that, in terms of exceptional at signing players. One is Brighton. Brighton probably, I would say, outdo either Benfica or Dortmund at the moment, with a different model in that Brighton's is very, very data-based. They've got an owner who is essentially a professional. His profession is
analytics.
Data,
I think they call it
gambling and analytics.
Analytics,
and they are exceptional. They seem to be able to, at the moment, sign unknown players and turn them into, a Champions League, virgin team. It's amazing with, Caicedo and McAllister and Cucurella, etc., that data is doing an exceptional job. And then the other one I call out for probably not at our level, like Brighton probably signed players who are good enough for City, is Brentford, who in 10 years unbelievably have a negative net spend. They've taken a lower league club to the Premier League with a negative net spend, and only team currently in the Premier League who have that negative net spend over 5 and 10 years, which that is Villa and clubs like that have spent over £500 million to achieve less than Brentford have. So I think, there's clubs to sniff around, and when they're interested in players, if you get that sense, then you're getting something good. And the other thing to say is that sometimes, I'm not writing Cakey off or, some of those players off, because look at Odegaard. Odegaard at 16 was the best young player in world football, was touted by everyone. He went to Madrid, bit part player, few loans, and then now I think, along with Haaland, is probably the only serious contender for player of the year halfway through the season. I think he's been exceptional, and he'd almost been written off by Madrid, saying he wants out because he knows he's not good enough. And then he's gone to a far harder league and taken a far lesser team on recent years' form than Madrid, and he is central to them. So signings can be picked up that are quite exceptional without always going and spending the 100 million. And if you actually, I saw this list the other day of the 15 most expensive transfers in Premier League history, and you looked at it, and with the exception of Virgil van Dijk, nearly all of them were worse signings for their clubs than Grealish has been for City. So Grealish is touted not being great, but actually compared to the 15 big money buys in the Premier League, which is players like Lukaku and Nicolas Pepe and things like that, he's actually turned out pretty good. So I think we need to think that we don't necessarily need to be talking about 100 million signings always to make the right deals.
No, yep. I think you're right there, Rich. I think you're right. The other thing I'd just like to kind of jump on that Pat was kind of alluding to a little bit is that, last summer, we sold loads of fringe players, loads of these players that we brought in that didn't quite make the first team. And, we sold a load to Southampton, and we're now starting to kind of say to these young talents that, okay, if you don't have a career here at City, you can at least train under us, and when we can look at kind of finding you a club that you're going to prosper, So I think that's a great business model as well. It's something that Chelsea have done previously in the past, and I think the thing that City have learnt the hard way, sadly, is that to make sure they insert that buyback clause, because otherwise, you're going to lose these players, and then not be able to bring them back and then sell them on if that's your ultimate plan. Because I know that's something that City has been reported that City are looking to do that with the is it the right back?
Pedro Porro.
Yeah. Apparently, Spurs want him, and now City, because they've got their buyback clause, they're looking at bringing him back. And then if they still don't want him, they can still sell him to whoever and still make a silly profit.
Well, that's the I think it's a pure cash decision by City. He's basically there were rumours Spurs were offering up to 30 million for him, and we can buy him back for 15, and we get 20%. So if he goes for 30 million from Spurs, from Sporting Lisbon, we'll get 6 million. But if we were to sign him for 15 and then sell him for 30, we'd get 15. So I think I suspect it's not a signing for football. I mean, he's been very, very public that Pep has never spoken to him, never talked to him, never watched him. Pep denied it and said he had, but he was quite, vocal against Pep when we played them in the Champions League last year. So I suspect that's an accountant's, call. If they think they can make 10 million from buying him back and only 6 from Sporting selling him, they'll probably execute the deal.
Yeah, well, we did it a couple of seasons ago with the left back from the academy. He went off to RB Leipzig, or before that, that's it, Angelino. So
problem I see though is if we sign him for 15, because that's this January, it goes to 20 in the summer, then I would have thought we'd have to keep him, because can't you only register for 2 clubs in a season, or is it if you don't appear? I know they had this with De Michaelis. There was a bit of could he play for us or not, because he went from, was it Villarreal to Atletico and then signed for us, but he'd never appeared for Atletico, so they could sell him. So I think you have to be careful about being registered for 3 clubs in the same period. So there's probably the lawyers looking at it too.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, with all the kind of different changes in the laws between different European clubs, and even with the, I hate to say it, but with Brexit, you know, there may be a way around it. I don't know. I'm not that up to knowledge, but we'll see what happens basically with that. I suppose we can move on now to kind of the ins and outs, really, guys, because I think you know, we've talked about MAXIMO, and you know, I don't think we can really add anything until we really see him on the field, really. So should we start with the outs? Because I think that's
and
relatively.
I think, in a sense, that's probably a bit speculative, isn't it, Ozzy? In that, you know, we know there's players who could leave because they're coming to an end of a contract or, you know, have a renewal. We know there's players who want to leave, and there may be some players we want to leave. So I think in some ways it's probably speculative on exactly who the names are, but certainly I was, you know, doing my homework on this, and you know, I think the obvious one is, you know, Bernardo, that he's been so clear he wants to go. He doesn't seem to be playing quite as well this season. So do you think we take it that Bernardo is now going to move on this summer, and that actually we should be a bit more, you know, kind to him with that deal, or do you think we should try and keep him?
No, I mean, I think we kind of talked about it last time, that I think, I mean, I was a big supporter of him, and I kind of felt that he'd been angling for this move for quite a while. He, you know, we've said in the past, or City, you know, have said definitely that any player that doesn't want to be at the club, you know, can pretty much go. He's been the exception to that rule. For what reason? You know, we know what a talented player is, and it would have been a tragedy to see him go early. But you know, the club have just decided that, you know, they're going to keep him for longer. You know, but I think that, like I said before, the straw that broke the camel's back for me is the latest, you know, that he's gone off and said, you know, that he wants out, he's fed up, he's had enough, and you know, you just can't have a player keep doing this over and over again. I get he's frustrated. I guess that he, you know, he's fed up and just wants out now. But there's a right way of doing it. And I think ultimately he knew that more than likely he was going to go next summer, you know, because I think that was just the way things were going to go. I didn't really see the point of him coming out and saying all this in his latest interview when he knew more likely he was going to go. I can only imagine that maybe from his point of view and his agent's point of view that he said this, so it lowers City's price tag a little bit more, so the likes of Barcelona can come in and snap him up for a relatively cheaper price than maybe what City want for him. So, yeah.
No, I tend to go. I think we all love him, but you know, it's like your kids. You know, you love them, you might like them being at home, but when they need to go and leave, you know, at some point you have to, you know, bless them, help them on their way, and you know, hopefully, you know, not do a complete solid and give him away, but you know, put a price that, you know, gives City a decent chunk towards his replacement, but also makes him affordable. I think my biggest concern with Bernardo is that someone more than just Barca comes in for him, unless Barca do go and win the league and Champions League and their financial position improves. I just don't want, you know, we're still owed 60 million by them for the young lad, and for Torres, and then the player they signed from us about 6 years ago. Apparently they still owe us a bit because that's paid over 10 years or something crazy. So, you know, and Barca have let Bordeaux have pretty much went to the wall because of Barca. Barca were intransigent about the fee for Maxwell and really made it impossible. And that pushed Bordeaux got relegated on the back of that. So I wouldn't want to see us dealing with them without cash in hand. So then I think the other player that's probably, really talked about everywhere is Gundo. Gundo has an option. I'm not sure if it's just Gundo has the option for another year or whether City have it as well. But basically, he's coming to the end of his contract. There's a 1-year option. Does he stay and renew the contract, or does he go to a slightly slower league or a slightly easier pace? How do you feel about him, especially in light of Bernardo, if we're saying Bernardo's going?
Yeah, just before I answer that question, just to say, FIFA, it's in the chat, he'll more likely go on a free. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, so City are not going to let him just go on a free. I mean, to run down his contract, he'd have to be at City for another 2 years. That takes him over 30, so and you've got a player very unsettled. I don't think that'll happen.
I think you're talking Aussie. We demanded 80 million, by all accounts this summer. I think we're probably talking about whether City lower their demand to something like 60, which is a bargain for a player of his quality. But do we do that because, he has, worked his arse off for the club. He's done a great job for the club. And although he has mentioned his homesickness, he's never agitated in a way by bad mouthing the club or anything else. He's just alluded to the weather in Manchester being a bit poor.
Yeah.
Which Mancunians would never do.
No, of course not. Just before I answer the Gundo question, Pat, you haven't said your 2 cents on Bernardo. Do you want to add anything to what?
Yeah, I'll just quickly just pitch in what I have to say now. Alluding to what you said, Ozzy, in regards to his comments, it's not exactly the sort of way you'll want to be leaving an impression on City fans and the club before you leave. Whether the Bernardo ship has sailed, I'm not sure, but I certainly feel like that boat has definitely been left at the dock untethered, if that's a good analogy to put it. I think now is a good time to cash in on him while we can. I think 60 million is a decent return with the fact that we bought him for 45 million about 5 years ago. So if you want to include inflation, I think it's pretty much pound for pound. Whether he goes to Barcelona, I mean, we've seen it before. Some of our players going there and not necessarily improving their game, which would be disappointing to see, because I'd like to think, he could have offered a bit more to the club for a few more years. The only thing that would disappoint me the most is I would like to think that because he is very, very close with a lot of his teammates, and there are a lot of teammates that will see the 10-year service at City, they will get the testimonial. And I'm trying to paint a hypothetical here where it's like, if he's invited by them to go to their respective testimonial, he comes on the pitch and all he's greeted with, as Martin eloquently puts it, just effectively like an Anfield golf club, then that would be very, very disappointing for me. The fact that he was able to put in, 6-7 years of service, and that's all the reception he gets from the City fans would really, really, it would break my heart, really, because he's done so much. He's put in so much for the club. He's been arguably one of our best players for the duration of time he's been at the club. And for him to be remembered like that, and for his legacy at City to be like that, it would really disappoint me.
Yeah, and I think the reality is, though, part of it, when you get to that 10 years, you're compared to Vincent Kompany, you're compared to David Silva, and the reality is, whichever way you look at it, is that I never heard David Silva say a bad word about City, about Manchester, about wanting to leave or any. I mean, we barely ever heard him say a word full stop.
His silence was golden.
Yes, and so when you're being compared to David Silva, let's be honest, most people's own family, etc., probably like being for you, David Silva. So and Vincent Kompany, another one who got that 10 years, who bled blue and was an absolute, leader and giant for City, for so many years. So you do get that, and I think Bernardo could have been a legend like them. I think his effort on the pitch, his quality, and everything else. But I do think that at the end of the day, if he does go after 7 years or whatever, there is going to be that taste in some people's, not everyone's. I think some people will still adore him, but I still think there's a danger of that taste of wanting out for the last 2 or 3 years. All the rumours, which do take a bit of an edge off things. And especially if he finds his form this season and he helps us on to win the league or something like that, then, that will, remind us that even when he wanted to leave, he's still been brilliant. But if he does have an off season, then, I think there is a danger that he won't be up there with the David Silvers.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see what happens in the summer. But like you've both said, it would be a shame that if he wasn't shown, some respect, because he has done so much for the club. I wish him well when he leaves, because he has been an excellent service for City, and we've had some great moments from him. So, yeah. Your question, Rich, about Gundo. It is a difficult one because he has got so much talent. He's also, I feel like he's a leader behind the scenes. He's not much of one on the pitch.
It's his football brain that makes him as good as what he is. In my opinion, I just think he's one of the most intelligent footballers in Europe today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pat. And I think also, Pep has alluded, and he's also he's trained some. Was it the under-12s? I think he trained with last year.
Yeah, he got his FIFA license. He got his FIFA managerial license through spending a bit of time managing the under-12s City squad.
You sound like you're a bit like me, and that is really hope we can keep him. That he accepts 35 games or 35 games a season. We keep him, and we almost get him into being a player coach, because I've said if everyone is playing for us today, I think he's the most likely person who could come back and manage the club. So he's the sort of person I'd love to see, following that path that, Arteta, Vieira, company, etc., have taken, of going into coaching blessed by City, and then, being someone on the radar for the future, because he's a very, very intelligent guy.
Yeah, Rich. Yeah. So what you're saying is when they show footage of the bench, you're going to see him spending more time sitting next to Pep than he actually sitting next to his teammates, a la Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, no, I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to. I think he's someone. If Bernardo goes, and therefore we go and we sign someone into that position. I'd love Gundo to be there to call on in games, to help teach the next, the 20-year-old replacement who's coming in, because I actually think, we've got great experience with Kevin De Bruyne to do that too, but I just think Gundo's that little bit more sophisticated at helping other players, and a little bit more, not that Kev's not a team player, but Kev's an exceptional individual who is incredibly driven, whereas I think Gundo's got a slightly bigger picture, of football.
Yeah, if Kevin decides to, he decides to go down a similar path, I won't complain in some respects. But I still think Kevin's got a lot more to still offer on the pitch than Gundo. I think Gundo is starting to slow down, and I just feel, he's not going to be able to keep up pace, with the season. So, yeah, I'd love to see him, like we said, go into the back room and be alongside Pep more and kind of learn.
And then mentioned in the chat, a couple of things, and this probably is less about individuals going out necessarily than things, but we've had one comment about Phillips should go back to Leeds. Are you writing Phillips off yet after one game, or are you prepared to give him the chance to show over the rest of the season and pre-season, get fit and show that he can be the player he was for Bielsa at City?
Yeah, I think it's really harsh. He's barely had that much time on the field. He's been injury prone. It's not been a good start for him, but that happens to a lot of players that come in from a move. It just doesn't work in the first season. We saw it with Jack. We saw it with Mahrez. I could go on. I'd be very surprised if City let him go in the summer. I think they'll give him another season and go from there, really. And if he's still continues to be injury prone or still doesn't continue to perform, I don't think we can do a certain player who, had to leave under dodgy circumstances. We won't get into too much, but I don't think we can continue to do that kind of thing where we keep a player around who is very injury prone or just isn't up to scratch.
And I think the other thing is it's hard to get a player any better than Calvin Phillips to be a backup to Rodri, because I don't think there's any defensive midfielder in the world you could sign at the moment who wouldn't potentially be Rodri's backup. Therefore, there is a ceiling. People say, we should sign Declan Rice, but I don't think Declan Rice is going to accept not starting every big game. So I don't think that's an option at City. I think he goes to a club like Chelsea or Liverpool, or where he's going to start. So to keep things moving, the other thing that everyone talks about at the moment is that we should move Grealish or Foden, one of those, into those attacking midfield roles. So, maybe we feel we need strengthening there. We lose Bernardo. That means there's 2 vacancies, but actually Foden or Grealish, I think, are both probably suited more to that position. So do you agree you'd like to move one of those 2, possibly both, to give them a freer role in the side?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before that we mentioned the last stream, didn't we? And saying that, we felt that Grealish was going to be Bernardo's replacement if he'd have gone last summer. And from, the last game, we saw that from him. So I do feel he has got that opportunity to move more into midfield, take over that Bernardo Silva role. And I still think that Foden should be moving to midfield, but it's so hard to get all these players into one midfield. I know Pep loves his midfielders. He's made comments in the past saying he just wants a team of midfielders. And in some respects, he's got them, even Ederson to respects. But I still think you need those wingers, which we'll get onto, I'm sure, in a bit. But I think you're right, Rich. I think if we lose Gundo, we lose Bernardo, there's a chance that Grealish and Foden can fight for that attacking mid spot. So
yeah, I'd like to see that. I just think Foden, that's where he needs to go. Even more than Grealish, because I still think Foden's the one with the ceiling. And that kind of leads to that comment, and this is probably more for the signings, but I think it's the average City fan at the moment where they're calling out for signings most, apart from left back, seems to be on the wings, giving us a different option. I think, probably, I think some people have made their minds up unfairly on Palmer. I still think Palmer is a work in progress. I can see a player there who is a high Premier League quality. I just think he saw it on Saturday in the game, Saturday, the game against Wolves, where he absolutely brilliantly skinned Al Nouri with an absolute bit of skill. And then he almost got overexcited that he'd done that in the Premier League, like he'd done in the under-21s. And then he mucked it up. And I think, to me, he shows intent. He shows the intent to beat Premier League defenders. He shows some good passes, but he's just needs a bit calm down, a little bit more experience, maybe a little bit more strength. So I'd like to keep him around, but whether he's truly a viable player to start big games at the moment, I'm not fully convinced.
No, I agree with you, Rich. He's a fantastic player. The talent, the times when I've seen him, play, you can see that he's got so much talent in that and drive. Like you said, he just needs kind of calming down and moulding a little bit more. So I would like to see him stay around as well, but it's just the opportunity, really. Getting into this first team is so difficult. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I think loaning him out would probably underdevelop, or it would hinder his development, basically, in terms of establishing himself in the first squad. I think if he did something like a James McAtee, where he was loaned off to a champion, a competitor for next season's possible, any one of the clubs that may be a possibility of getting promoted next season, I'm sure he'd have a good season, but I just think it would actually hinder his development if he was to come back to the first squad. So I think we just got to be patient with him. Just got to be careful. I'm going to allude to something that Martin said. I think it was towards the back end of last season, where because of Palmer's age and the way that his body was growing, the way his body was developing, he wasn't training every 3 days, I believe, with the
last year he couldn't. Last year he had problems with his
and I think that's what was a lot to do with his injuries, wasn't it, Rich?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of rollover effect with that into this season as well. So I think we just got to be patient with him. If anything, there is at certain times this season, there's been little periods where Cole Palmer has sort of reminded me in terms of the first season or two of Phil Foden. Just like you think he's ready, but there's obviously something happening in the back there where it's just like, no, Pep's taking really good care of this guy, wrapping him in cotton wool for a few weeks, and then unleashing him when he feels like he's comfortable and confident to play.
There is, except I think Phil Foden had a few bits of magic in there. Probably a level in slightly, like the game against Spurs where he came in and scored the win. I think Foden had a few really big moments, which I'm not quite sure Palmer has. I just think you can see the difference in confidence where, say, Rico Lewis is in there and you don't look at him as a young player. You don't look at him as new in. No. He just slides in like he's always been there. Whereas Palmer does look a bit raw. Now, I think I'm just conscious we do need to make sure we move on to actually signing the players. So the last thing is really looking at defence. Now, we have 5 centre-backs at the moment. For me, 4 of them seem pretty nailed on to stay. I think there are rumours of Laporte, have been a bit over the years, Laporte going. But, at the moment, we've got 4 strong centre-backs, almost too many. And I'm not really sure that there will be a viable option for Laporte to leave anyway, because I think Pep loves him, because I think he is the best defender at passing and breaking the lines, even possibly better than Stones, who's exceptional at that. And B, I think someone would have to pay 80 million, and I don't see a Spanish club, who has got that money to spend on a centre-back. But I do think where in defence we might see a move. I'll be interested in your thoughts before we move on to who we sign. There has to be some question marks now after the last month or two around, is Cancelo just going for a dip in form, or is he having a bit of a sulk with Manchester, or is that just the effect of the robbery, the World Cup? He's probably been overplayed in that he's played more minutes, in the last 2 seasons than pretty much any other outfield player. So is there a bit of that, and Cancelo's going to come good, or is that somebody can move? And is Kyle Walker, is he reaching the end? We've had lots more injuries, some games like Newcastle, although I blame Pep for that. But he came on and he put Mbappe in his pocket whilst half fit in the World Cup. So he's still got it. What do you think one of those might move on? And we might need a couple of fullbacks, or do you think, they're going to come good?
I do feel that a left back is needed. I mean, it's the amount of times we've mentioned it on this channel that we just feel a proper left back is needed. And obviously that was something that they were concentrating on the summer with I forgot his name now, who went to Chelsea. It's gone completely out of my head. Cucurella. And obviously that didn't happen. So, we brought in God, I'm really bad with names this evening.
Gomez.
We brought in Gomez to see if he could do something. A young Spanish talent, brilliant, but still very raw and probably not really up for first team action in City's squad.
Going forward,
brilliant going forward, but defensively awful. So I do feel that needs strengthening. Cancelo, I do feel it's just a drop in form. I don't think he's angling for a move. I don't think he's fed up. I just think you're right, Rich. He's been a bit overplayed. He came back from the World Cup not probably in the best shape and probably not in the best mind space. I'm going to try and make this quick because I know we want to get into the ins. So, and I think Walker, I still think Walker has got something to offer. I think he doesn't appear to be slowing down. You know, he's still rapid, and we saw that, like you said, we saw that in the World Cup. I just feel that maybe we need to think about reducing his playing time just to kind of make sure that he's there for those type of games where we really need him. And I feel that may become into the Champions League. So I still think both players have still got something to offer, but I also think that left back needs addressing. So
yeah, and I think the blessing in disguise is Rico Lewis too, because as you said, Ozzy, I think it allows Kyle Walker to focus on probably playing maybe only once a week, because that's when, you know, if we have him playing roughly once a week, that's when we can still get him at a really good pace, and he's still quick. He's still as fast as anybody else in the Premier League, and I think we're still good. We're good for that for another season or two at least. I also think he helps with Rico Lewis's development as well too. I think Rico's going to learn so much with Kyle Walker, you know, taking him under his wing as well too. João Cancelo, excuse me, just a dip in form. I think we'll see good things from him in the coming months, especially the Champions League. I think Pep's saving him for the knockout stages of that. So he'll be, you know, off doing his own thing, you know, covering left back when necessary as well. In terms of an out and out left back, like I would like to finally see us get one. But also too, I'm going to allude to some of the potential ins as well too. Is talk about, I think we mentioned it briefly yesterday, was that Josko Gvardiol from RB Leipzig, because while he is more seen as a centre back, he does kind of fall into that category of, you remember when we signed Danilo? We signed Danilo, even though he is a recognised right back, but he's such a versatile player that he can play across the entire back four, plus he can also play in the 6 role too.
Yeah, I think Gvardiol's played.
Gvardiol does that.
He has played left back
a lot.
Yeah, he has.
I feel like we're definitely in on Gvardiol if someone actually does end up going in for Nathan Ake.
I just don't see Ake going. If I'm honest now, he is playing more football than he has for years. He's looking really assured. He's looking really at home. I just don't see why he'd want to go. He's probably been picked more than anyone else this season.
And Rich, I don't want him to go because every single match he puts in a 7 out of 10.
Can I just
nothing less.
And
just to throw, you know, devil's advocate slightly. We've got so many centre backs who are very versatile. Laporte and especially Ake can go at left back. But I'm just going to throw this out there. If Champions League final, okay, who are you putting as your back four? Because you can't fit them all in. And then from that, realistically, who do you think would have to go?
Honestly, at the moment,
name one player.
Yeah, at the moment, the decision that Pep would make in a game is going to be, am I going to play Rico Lewis or am I going to play Cancelo? Because Pep is now playing every single game, effectively a 4-man defense, but one of them goes into midfield. If it's Cancelo, he goes up into like a number 10 winger type role. And if it's Lewis, he slides into a Fabian Delph defensive midfielder role. So honestly, I think in a big game, Pep is going to sit down and he's going to say, who is going to be my fullback who goes into midfield? It's not going to be Walker. Could be Stones. Stones could arguably do it, but I think Rico Lewis does it better on the right. Or it could be Cancelo. And so at the moment, I genuinely think, depending on the team, he might even consider throwing Rico Lewis into a massive game like that ahead of Cancelo. And once he's done that, he's got to pick 3 centre-backs, one of whom can nominally play fullback. And at the moment, Ake and Laporte can go to left-back. Stones and Akanji can go to right-back. Stones, I think, does it slightly better. So I honestly think at the moment, he's going to say, right, Rico Lewis or Cancelo. And then if it's Cancelo, he's probably going to, you know, he can pick Walker as well, because Walker can be a right-sided centre-back. If he picks Cancelo, he's going to pick either Walker or Stones. He's going to pick, you know, Diaz and then Laporte or Ake on the left. And if he picks Rico Lewis, at the moment, he's probably going to pick Ake left-back, and then he's going to pick Stones and Diaz or Stones and Laporte as the other centre backs. And I think that's how we do it, because it's all about getting that body into midfield. But I think we probably do, we probably do need to move on to the signings now. I did a little bit of made some notes from all your comments. So I think probably what we're looking at is we need a centre midfielder to replace Bernardo, and probably bring in Grealish or Foden as well to strengthen that midfield, which means we probably need 2 wingers, because we probably feel we're already one light. If we move someone else out, we're a bit doubtful about Palmer. So we probably need 2 attackers, wide players. We probably need a centre midfield. And then I think Ozzy, you're very much with me that we need a left back, that we finally need to bite the bullet and have a left back. So if we base it around that, and then looking at the finances, we've got about 150 million that we've banked last summer, and we probably generate maybe 60 from Bernardo going, and easily another 50 from some young players going. So we're probably going to have a budget somewhere, if we want, I'm not saying we'll spend it, somewhere in that 250 to 300 if we need to do a rebuild. So with that as a basis, those 4 positions and 250 to 300 million, you're the manager, give us a few thoughts, of how you think we should be looking to spend that. And there may be some times where you've got a first and a second option, or you've got a player who's maybe unattainable and then someone more realistic behind them.
Guys, and also too, given our transfer business over the last 1 or 2 summers, there is every possibility that this summer we could be spending as much as what we did, say, the summer before the Centurion season, where I think we went out and forked out about something like £220 million or something.
Yeah,
more defenders and attackers. So this is probably the biggest spending summer we could see since summer 2017.
I think we could get up to 300 because of inflation, and some of these players that we're probably looking at signing are going to cost quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and let's be honest, if we find out that Laporte wants out and Cancelo wants out and Gundo goes, then we're talking about signing 4 here. We might be signing 6 if other players go, but let's go. I mean, over to you, Ozzy, and you've got that budget up to 300 million. You're looking at something like 2 wingers, a midfielder, and a left back. Who do you think we should be looking at?
Let's start with the elephant in the room that I think most people are going to be thinking about. We've talked about him so many times, going to that midfield. And it is Jude Bellingham, isn't it? I know things have gone quiet lately, and I know there's been a few kind of hints that he's actually looking at Liverpool now more than he is at City or Real Madrid. But for me, he is one of the best young talents I've ever seen play. We've seen him play against City. Pep has talked about him, which Pep rarely talks about another player from another team. Usually that's players from another team, I don't talk about him. But when he does talk about them, they usually come in the door, on that following summer. So I think City do want Bellingham. I think they are willing to spend the money. I just think it all comes down to Bellingham's choice now, because he just needs to decide where he wants to go. But for me, for that centre midfield spot, I want Bellingham, and I'm sure a lot of City fans do as well. I'm sure you two would feel probably the same.
And Liverpool, it's always a hard one, because Liverpool have that press propaganda. So every player ever wants to sign for Liverpool and United, according to the press. But you never really know how serious it is, because it is a bit of a cult. So, you assume the realm, you do kind of wonder how serious a player would be about going to a Europa League team. How serious FSG would be about spending that sort of money. And so what about the other positions, Ozzy? Where else would you've got Bellingham as your big signing, where else would you look on the wings and at left back?
So I think on the left wing, I've mentioned him before, and I just feel that he is an extraordinary talent that has been linked with a few other clubs, but I just feel that he's a winger I'd love to see at City, and that's Rafael Leao, currently at AC Milan.
I was going to mention Leao.
Yeah. And he's only got a year left in the summer, so they they might say we want 100 million, but they're going to have to accept, unless he signs a new contract, they're going to have to accept something reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, you look at his numbers over the last few seasons playing for AC Milan, and so I'm just going to go from last year's. He had 11 assists and 8 goals. This season so far, he's got 8 goals and 5 assists. So that's an improvement. If he keeps on at that pace, I think he's bound to score more goals and get more assists this season. I think I know AC Milan look at trying to pin him down with a new contract, but I think he feels that his future now is somewhere else. Where that somewhere else now is up to basically him. And I think for me, it's at City. I think he's just a winger we are looking for. He's also Portuguese, so he fits in with the likes of Diaz and Cancelo. And I just feel because you've got that connection, if Cancelo stays especially, then you've got someone on that left wing who he plays it on the international level. And I just think Pep can just mould him into being a brilliant winger. So for me, again, he's got rapid pace, which I think is something we severely lack right now. And I can just see him moulding into this team really well. So that is my left wing spot. What do you guys think about that option?
Ozzy, do you think maybe the reason Leao hasn't extended his contract at Milan is because there's a possibility that maybe his fellow countrymen for Portugal, particularly the ones that wear Sky Blue week in, week out, may have had a word with him?
Possibly. I think they do speak at they obviously speak, when they're on international duty.
Yeah.
And they all kind of ask about the clubs they're at and how well they're being paid and what the atmosphere is like and what the manager's like. So I'm sure those conversations would have been had. I think our serious competition for him would have been Chelsea, but because Chelsea are spending ridiculous amounts of money now on wingers especially, I think that deal isn't going to happen now. I just can't see him going anywhere else, really. I think out of all the big clubs in Europe right now, I think City are probably front and centre for him. I know it's gone quiet lately, but I just feel that that's not a bad thing because we know City do deals quietly. They don't kind of make a big show and dance of it. So this deal could already been done for all we know.
And I think the reality is we're going to see more and more players run down their contracts because the reality is at the moment, if Leao's an 80 million player and next summer he goes for 50 because he's only got a year left, he's still an 80 million player. So he's going to get that 30 million. So increasingly, I think we're going to see players run down contracts and that's going to push up wages for renewals a lot. So I think we're going to see some real push on the top players on the wages when they renew. But they know how valuable they are. And, Mbappe showed he ran his contract down and effectively became worth $1 billion. And once he was a free agent or verging on a free agent, that $1 billion was all going to be his. So, I think it won't just be City with Leao. He knows if he runs down his contract, probably every top club in Europe would be wanting to take him on a free. And there'd be a bidding war with dozens of clubs for his deal. So, a few names, I was going to throw in, with you talked about Bellingham. I think the player I would most like to go for over everyone this summer for that slot replacing Bernardo Gundo is Odegaard at Arsenal. I think he is, and not David Silva, but he is playing with that quiet authority, dominating the games, not losing the ball in a way I haven't really seen a Premier League midfielder do since Silva this season. I think not always the glory moments, but just absolutely central to everything they do. So there's part of me that thinks Haaland getting one of his best mates who he really works well with. They're very close. Screwing up Arsenal for one of their most important players. Bringing in a player who's perfect for City. There's part of me that thinks that even almost more than Bellingham I'd quite like to see us, wind up.
It's not fantasy transfers, Rich.
Well, no.
No,
You chuck in, honestly, a very large bid.
is this your wild card?
We beat them to the league, and they're a bit upset. And
But by the way, who said Rashford was coming in for Bernardo or Gundogan?
Rashford.
No, it's not Rashford. Bellingham.
But I think Bellingham long term will be De Bruyne's replacement. But I think
that's who Bellingham comes in for.
Yeah, but I think he'll play with De Bruyne for a year or two. I don't think
learn it because De Bruyne's our transition player, and Bellingham's main attribute is transition.
Yeah, I think Martin, you may have been a bit confused because when we talked about Bernardo leaving, we were looking at moving Foden and Grealish into that spot, not
potentially
Bellingham.
Obviously, I've sort of missed. I'll just quickly throw my wild cards all over. The ones that I think are going to leave: Cancelo, Bernardo. I think a centre back will leave because I don't think 5 works. One of them will go. Who that is, I don't know. You can throw a cover over all 5, and one of them is going to leave.
Where I'll disagree with you, Martin, is I think there's only one who could leave, and I don't think financially.
There's no way we can keep rotating our back line like this year after year after year and get any consistency.
There's always an injury at the back somewhere.
And we play
5 centre backs. It is a lot to try and keep that.
We've had 6 games or 7 games this season. We've been down to 2. So we've had 3 out for
no. I understand
a third of the season. And we play 3 of them in a game.
I'm just telling you, I think one of them
I think the most likely person to go, just because they can turn a profit on him and because he's come in and done really well, is Akanji.
Yeah.
Because the other players are established players. And I think, he's 27. He'll be 28 next summer. That's for me, that's probably the most likely player that I want to see go, because if I had to choose, I'm talking about, for me, that's who I'd pick.
Yeah,
honestly.
We bought him for 15 million. How much, if we were to sell him now in January, how much do you think we'd get for him? Half a season in the Premier League is easily worth more than what we paid for him.
For who?
For Akanji.
Yeah. I mean, my surprise out in the summer, I think, could be Phillips.
We've just wrapped up to say who we're going to sign.
Yeah, no. I'm just telling you.
It just comes in.
He's just on an absolute wild card curveball.
He's completely.
I just came in and just threw it in.
It's just lacking discipline. Pep wouldn't pick Martin, that's for sure. With this sort of,
he's coming with his Salzburg Casey cut a nuclear bomb, but he just wrecked this entire chat.
Carry on your ins.
I'll throw a quick question to everybody. I know, this is something I was thinking is like, I'm probably the last person here that really wants to see Gundogan go because I still think he offers so much to the club. However, would you guys be willing to let Gundogan go back to Borussia Dortmund if it meant that it improved our chances of getting Jude Bellingham?
Yes.
The trouble with that is that he's out of contract. If he doesn't re-sign or extend, he's out of contract in the summer. So we actually, unless that's a January deal in the last 7 days, we have no say in that. He's completely free. So I think probably our window for that to happen has gone, because unless you think that there's a chance, which initially I kind of hope we might go for a January deal, but it just seems that that's not likely. Then we won't have any influence on where he goes.
It'll be Carlos Borges who'll go to Dortmund.
That wouldn't surprise me, actually.
That'll be the sweetener. I think Gundogan stays.
Yeah, I mean, the other one, So here's a real wild card to throw in the mix. We've when we spend this summer, we're probably going to sign a few top dollars. We've talked about Gvardiol and then Bellingham and my fantasy Odegaard signing. There's a couple of really big names, but with that, possibly the hour a bit cheaper because he's got a year left. We're probably going to have to sign someone a bit cheaper to fit in. We also have to think of the slots in the team. Now, my wild card signing, and it's got to be a suitably insultingly low bid, but what about going and annoying the Rags and offering 25 million to get Jadon Sancho back? He wouldn't take a slot. He is an immensely talented player who's deeply unhappy where he is, who could, I think, still do a amazing job. And I reckon you could get him for 20 million.
Hang on, just let me find the remove button. I didn't realise we were taking a piss, James.
No,
what do I do? Do I bring him in
player.
to send him out to Holland for a 6-month training camp?
Yeah,
No,
NAC Brader for 6 months. He'll come back.
Rich, you're being naughty with that one. You know you are. Shut up, behave.
No, I just think there is a very talented player there who I reckon you could get for about 20 million, you know, about 75 on him, and then doesn't even take a squad slot, free squad slot, and he knows how to play the City way.
He'll be saying Sane next.
Taking 3/4 of a loss on him in one season. Where have you got that from?
Well, that'll be 2 years by the summer, won't it?
They're not going to buy him for nearly 80 million and then whack him to us for 20.
Yeah, but do you think they're going to pay him? Do you think they're going to pay him 20 million a season to not even sit on the bench?
And you want him in our first
season? He's costing them 40 million a season. So Jesus. I think they will. I think they will sell him. I think they'd loan him out.
Well, welcome to the Mancunian Way comedy evening, everyone.
Now you see, you've got to take risks if you're going to spend big on some players. You've got to take risks on the others.
He's still at it.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to throw in a slightly more sensible wild card. I think it's still a possibility, but I call it a wild card just because of the team he's currently at and the importance that he offers that team. Which you alluded to, obviously a player currently at Arsenal. I am going to as well. My wild card is Bukayo Saka.
I'd love him, but I don't think Arsenal would ever sell to us.
Because that's the wild card factor. That's the wild card factor.
No,
it was any other club. It was other clubs in Europe.
He hasn't signed his new contract though, has he? He's only got 18.
He will do. Apparently, they are getting close.
Yeah, but that if they get to the summer and he hasn't signed, they're in the Van Persie, Samir Nasri position. So
they're going to win the league and then sell all the China off. That's just
Well, the decision for them is going to be: can they pay him the 350 grand or whatever he'll be being told by agents for a dozen other clubs he's going to do? And I think probably Arsenal can, because they played Aubameyang, about 300 grand a week. So I actually think Arsenal probably can, but they're going to face that. They're going to have a lot, especially if they win the league, they're going to have a ton of renewals coming in, and they're all going to be demanding another 100, 200 grand a week. So you could be talking about adding 100 million to their wage bill. If all these young players they've got are suddenly going from 80 grand to
the only thing too is that if Arsenal do win the league, even if they finish top 4, they will be able to renegotiate quite a lot of contracts with their big players, because with all the Champions League money coming in,
and they'll have 100 million.
That will change the landscape at Arsenal quite considerably.
I've got a bit of a wild card, and there's a couple of reasons why he's a bit of a wild card. One, his contract ends in 2025. Another reason is because of the club he's currently at are in a spot of bother, let's say, and I'm sure Rich will allude to it a little bit more. But he's Fernando Casilla, if I got that right, at Juventus.
Oh,
the Italian player. Now, during the Euros, he was absolutely immense. One of the best players at the Euros. He's sadly currently injured, but he has got so much talent. He is a phenomenal player. And I just feel with Juventus in a lot of hot water right now, they may have to look at selling a few players. Like I said, his contract ends in 2025. And I just think he's 25 now. I think his ball control is immense as well. And I think he's just a pet player. So he's my wild card to come in.
Who's that?
Sorry, Martin.
Who was that?
Federico Casilla from Juventus.
Chiesa.
Do you mean
Chiesa,
Chiesa?
Sorry,
Chiesa,
Chiesa.
Chiesa,
I
yeah.
was going to say, the bloody who's he on it? I was like, what? I don't even know this
Yeah.
guy.
No, Chiesa
Not
is
like,
quality. Yeah, he's a good player.
I wouldn't touch Juventus with a barge pole right now.
If you get
Well,
a
the
good
thing-
player,
Barge pole.
The thing
You're
What
is,
gonna
about
put
the
Martin,
young
yourself
lad
in
on
your
the
way
wing?
within
What
10
about the young lad whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce at Napoli that we have watched a lot of times?
I'd love him.
the
but
problem
Napoli
is
won't touch us.
It's Napoli.
Napoli have got since the
De Laurentiis just will not
Koulibaly
do any business
incident.
with us whatsoever. No
Yeah.
business whatsoever.
He's a good player, but I think the relationship between City and the Napoli is so bad. I just don't think that deal probably would happen. Just to kind of finally wrap up to my last player for left back. I know we've talked about. I'm going to butcher his name. The Croatian
Vardy.
player. Yeah.
Vardy.
Yeah. So I think he would be excellent, but there is another player that I think he's just as good, if not better. Is Theo Hernandez at AC Milan. He had a brilliant World Cup. He's got brilliant stats. He's at the right age, and I just think he's a phenomenal left back. I know it'd be difficult to get him out of AC Milan because I think his contract doesn't end until 2027.
He just renewed it last summer, I think.
Yeah, so I think it would be a difficult deal to do, and it would probably cost a bit. But he's my alternative to Graglio. So I just think he's an exceptional player, and I think he would fit into City squad amazingly. It would just be a very hard deal.
If we got Hernandez and Leao, there's your link-up play on the left already sorted.
Yeah, exactly.
Co-teammates at AC Milan. They hit the ground running. First game of the season.
What do you think about a player who's apparently available, then probably goes back to a slightly different model than Theo Hernandez, who's a brilliant defender? But, I've seen a couple of things suggesting, a few clubs interested in Alphonso Davies, who's probably the fastest fullback in world football, apart from maybe Hakimi. And keep Veta happy, being a Canadian in Spain. Is he a player you'd consider bringing in at absolutely ridiculous pace?
No.
He's an excellent player. There's no denying that. Again, he's another fullback that I just think would work in a Pep system. The problem is Bayern and City's relationship ever since Sane is so bad. I don't think that deal could happen, if I'm honest, Rich.
And if Davies renews his contract too with Bayern, I could just see him just being another Joshua Kimmich as well too. Just someone who will stay at Bayern for the rest of his career.
The problem is it's like with all these wingers, Leao and all them. I think City have changed. I think we've changed our whole system, our whole outlook. But we've gone to this 3 at the back with 5 in the mid, or 5 up top. Basically, like we've been told, 3-box-3. But we're not playing this wide, expansive football anymore.
The problem is, though, Martin, is we're not doing that because we haven't got the players to do that. I don't
think Pep wants that, Ozzy. He sold every single winger out the club.
Yeah, but there were reasons for that, Martin. I think he would have kept Sterling if Sterling wanted to stay, if I'm honest.
No, they weren't even talking. There was no chance he was ever staying.
No, what I'm saying, Martin, is if Sterling wanted to stay, I think Pep would have wanted him to stay. So I just feel that I think we will get wingers in, and I think that currently we're having to play this way because we haven't got any wingers. So, but I think in the summer we will be getting at least one winger in.
Yeah.
No,
I alluded to before. I think this summer is going to be the most spending since summer of 2017, since before the Centurion season. I think this will be our biggest spending summer, and I think this will be the summer transfer window where we effectively rejuvenate the squad. We go young, we go quicker again, we increase the tempo. I cannot see in any way, shape, or form this same sort of setup, this similar sort of setup, serving Erling Haaland the way that it is, and it's doing a reasonable job. But the fact that we've got only Haaland in there now means that we need to now start serving him the same way Aguero was being served by Sane and Sterling over 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree
Yeah.
with Pat. I
Yeah,
totally
no,
agree.
but
It's going to be Centurion season 2.0.
Yeah,
I get what you're all
Not
saying.
in terms of results, but in terms of who we buy and the style of play that we play.
Listen, it's all up to opinions and interpretations. I look at the squad we've got, and I look at the kind of players we're being linked with. Bellingham, you've got Grealish, you've still got Mahrez, you've got Alvarez as well. You've got 2 strikers now. I just don't see where you then go and slot 2 fast wingers in and ditch half your team out to slot these 2 wingers in.
Yeah, I
don't agree because you had a Aguero and you had Jesus, so you always going to need a backup striker.
Jesus never played. The reason why he left.
Martin, come on, let's be honest. Jesus.
I'm being honest. What was the reason Jesus left, Ozzy?
No, but let's be honest. He was going to be. No, let me finish. He was going to be Aguero's replacement, but he just wasn't Aguero. Let's be honest. Well, yeah, good enough.
He's not an out-and-out number 9.
Anyway, I've got to drop, so I'll just add my tuppence in on this, and then I've got to drop. But I'm going to side slightly with Ozzy and Patrick on this, in that I do think.
Hey, listen, it's fine. It's all opinions.
That Pep's watching our team, and what we will need next summer is. And it's either going to come from fullbacks, which I don't think it will, unless we go and sign a Davis or someone. It's not going to come from the fullbacks. We are going to need players who can beat a fullback for pace and put in a cross. And that we really, Grealish has done that a bit. And Mahrez is, in the last couple of weeks, doing that a bit more. But I think we're going to need a different option. And so what I think we will have is we've got Grealish and Mahrez, and if needed, I want Foden going into midfield, but if needed, Foden, who play that real control and technique and everything else. I think we need something a little bit different, and I think we do need, a player like the Sane type who's got the pace to just pull out really wide, go round the back of a defender and put in a cross to Haaland, because I don't think we're ever going to be able to play the type of football that Haaland did at Dortmund, where the whole team of the opposition are up on the halfway line, putting pressure on us, and we can break at pace. I don't think we're going to have that. So therefore, to change and improve what we've got, we need players who offer something slightly different to Mahrez, Grealish and Foden. And for me, that's a little bit more pace, a little bit more tendency to put in a cross, exactly like Sterling did for Gundogan's goal that turned the game against Villa. We need a player or 2 who can do that, ideally 1 on each side, to give us something different, to give Haaland more opportunities, to give those things. So I guess my final comment would be, I think we need a couple of those wingers. If we got Alphonso Davies as a fullback, I think we would have that, whereas if it was Gvardiol, we wouldn't. I think, we need that midfield, that big midfielder, a Bellingham or an Odegaard, really top midfielder. And, I think, we need to do some good business on the wings. I don't think we can go and spend 100 million on a winger and 120 on another winger. We're probably going to have to be sensible, but players of that nature who've got that pace, got that ability to cross, offer something different, change a game. I think that is going to be what Pep wants, because he's had a season to look at what is the weakness of City with a number 9, a true number 9, and what is the strength of it. And we're playing the way we do because that's the squad we've got. But in the summer, he's going to be thinking about, what would I change in our squad to get even more out of that number 9? What do we not have in the squad? So I actually think, Martin, you're right about the way we're playing now, but I think that's us adapting to Haaland, and Pep will adapt again.
Yeah.
I do have to say good night.
No, you have. I know you have. I know what you're saying, and thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Rich.
But what I'm going to say, like you just said, you got Foden, you got Grealish.
They're not wingers, Martin. They're not wingers.
They're not slowly transitioning into their respective midfield roles.
Speak. Yeah.
Just do what you did to me.
Yep.
Thank you. You want Bellingham. You got Foden. You got Grealish. You got Mahrez. Gundogan's going to re-sign. You got this Perrone. We don't know what's going to happen, but the chances are Pep wants him that bad. He might get a chance. Got Alvarez. Where are these two wingers going and where's everyone else going? This is my problem right now. People think you're just going to park 2 or 3 midfielders out onto the bench. Oh, and you've got Kevin De Bruyne as well. And then just chuck 2 fast-paced wingers in. And away you roll. Alvarez ain't going to sit on the bench forever, whether we like to believe that or not. He isn't. He's a World Cup winner. In a bit, he's, won the World Cup and his agent's already going, excuse me, can we talk contracts negotiations again now, please? Wage increase. There will be a conversation in that meeting about minutes as well, no doubt, because they'll say he can go anywhere in the world here, this kid, and he'll play. You're going to say they're not going to get rid of Grealish because Pep absolutely adores him, adores the guy. Plus, he's the second best-selling shirt seller in the club, so you ain't going to get rid of him. Mahrez has just signed a new 3-4 year deal. So he's not going to pop up and go anywhere. Only signed it, when was it, last summer? They made a big thing of it on the website. Gundogan's going to sign a new deal. I don't know where 2 quick, pacey wingers come in. And then what you doing? Chucking Foden out? Foden bye-bye? This is my thing. I just think we've changed now. Pep has literally ditched every winger we've got. Every winger we've had is sold. Did this Carlos Borges? Everyone... He's amazing. Get him in. What a winger. Get him in. He's destroying EDS. Pep won't even give him a go. I just don't think we're going down the natural pacey wingers. Honestly, and I'm here to be proved wrong. I think the days of Sterling and Sane are done. I think they're finished.
And Martin, you could be right. I'm not going to dismiss your opinion because that'd be wrong. And I totally can see where you're coming from. I just think me, Pat, and Rich are kind of on the same page here that we feel that Pep is just at the moment adapting to what he's got right now. And I just feel that come the summer, things will change because you look at Haaland and he knows that, and he said this himself, he needs to be able to get players that can adapt to a new player, new playing style that has a prominent number 9 like Haaland. When you talk about Alvarez, yes, he's a World Cup winner. Yes, he's doing brilliantly. But I think he's the, if I'm being honest, I think he's the Jesus right now. I feel that he will never, possibly. But, we wanted Jesus to stay. But at the end of the day, he was never going to replace Aguero. And I don't see anybody replacing Haaland. Now, unless Haaland leaves, like we've talked about, Real Madrid come along and bite the block by his, release clause, then fair enough. Then Alvarez may slot in that spot. But right now, right here, no one's taking, Haaland away from this. I think the way it's going to go is, I think
not
you will
unless
have
they pay the release clause, which is stupid.
Yeah. So, and for me, me, Rich, and Patrick talked about earlier on that we feel that Grealish and Foden will move into that midfield spot, taking over from Bernardo. Take over from Bernardo Silva because he's
who was coming in. That's what I was.
Grealish and it'll be fought over for us between Grealish and Foden. Okay, for them to fight out for that spot, and then I think Gundo may sign an extension, but I think he's not the player he was. He's getting a lot older. He'll play less minutes, so he'll be a bench player that will come in.
But then we're getting Bellingham, and you've still got De Bruyne.
Yeah, but no offense to De Bruyne, but he's not getting any younger, and you need that replacement. And that replacement.
No. Listen, I agree with you. I'm just saying, my point of view is, if you look what Pep's doing, he's stocking midfielders in. We don't even play overlapping fullbacks anymore. The overlapping fullback part's gone. I think he's just decided I ain't doing this width down the sides no more.
But
I want
then
work rate.
But then you become predictable, Martin. You just become predictable. Sorry, Pat.
Yeah,
listen, have a go at me. I'm not a buddy manager.
The other thing too is, Martin, it's just in regards to what you said before, like referring in like you were kind of discussing, what I said before about saying I think we need to get wingers and get speedy again and things like that, and you think the days of Sane and Sterling are gone. And fair play, okay, maybe that is the way, but then if we also look at that from another perspective, is this season we've gone back to inverted fullbacks. We were doing that when we had Bakary Sagna and Pablo Zabaleta in the squad in Pep's first season. So for me, I don't think it's necessarily redeveloping. I just think he may be finding another way of reinventing the wheel. So I still feel confident that we will see a style of play that is similar to what we saw in Centurion season. Sterling Aguero.
I'm fine with
but
that.
I think Pep will have another idea of how he wants to play again, but it won't be in a way that the Premier League has seen. He's always constantly reinventing the wheel to make us perform better, to perform faster, and to be a better team. Or it's consistently evolving, and I think. If he's going to do what he did this season with the inverted fullbacks, well, he's effectively going back to doing a style of play that he did in his first season. So I can't see any reason why he may redo it again, but he'll tweak it in his own little sort of way.
These players aren't going to come in and sit on a bench. You can't say.
No, I get that, mate. But that's the thing. At the end of the day, we buy players necessarily for the depth because our intention as a club is to play every 3 days. That is our intention at the end of every season. Are we in every competition for the next season? Yep. Where do we need to bolster? Where do we need to bolster our depth in every position? And that's
I get what you're saying, but the players that have been announced tonight are not squad players. Gavardio's not coming in.
Sorry, Martin.
I'll just shut up. I gotta get a word in here. Gavardio's not going to come in to play squad.
Yeah, I alluded before. I said Guardiola will come in if one or two centre backs come out.
Yeah,
I do.
Bellingham's not coming in to play squad. You've got, and then who was the other one we got linked with? Was Leao ain't going to come in to play squad. Because if you're looking at Leao, Bellingham, Gavardio, you're looking at the best part of 300 million there, maybe a little bit north of that, plus the wages.
The only thing I think with Bellingham is, I'm sure, and we've seen before with young players coming through is with Pep. I just don't know if Pep is going to play him as often as Borussia Dortmund will. I think he will be very, very careful with a 19-year-old in the Premier League who's played a very high amount of minutes for several seasons in the Bundesliga. And I think while Kevin De Bruyne still has a bit to offer, he's getting closer as each season goes on. He's getting closer to being a player can only play once every 7 days, not every 3 days. Jude Bellingham will fill in that gap that Kevin De Bruyne cannot do. And I think Jude Bellingham won't come in and do 50, 60 games a season. Not as a 19-year-old who's been doing that at Borussia Dortmund. I just don't see Pep. I think Pep would be terrified of him having a burnout by the time he hits his early to mid.
No, that's true.
I think he will protect him while De Bruyne still has something to offer in the midfield.
Yeah, and I also think
he could go anywhere else in Europe and play all them games.
Yeah. And City will fork out the money because if they fork out the money for Jude Bellingham now as a 19-year-old, they're automatically thinking there's our next 10-year player.
Yeah.
They will buy him with the intention of having him at the club for a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
and when De Bruyne goes, there's a testimonial, and then guess what? Bellingham, you're halfway to your own testimonial.
Yeah. And I just think, Martin, you're saying these players won't go on the bench. Well, we look at last weekend. How many of those players were on the bench? Yeah. In the modern way now.
And how many of them have we said are probably going to leave?
Martin.
Jose. How many of them have we said are going to leave?
Well,
5
Martin,
of them.
Possibly, Martin. We have discussed our outs already, so we're on to the ins.
Martin's having his own De Bruyne moment. Let me talk.
What I'm saying is, you're getting rich. What squad of 42 players?
Martin, we haven't got a big squad.
It ain't going to work like that. Because if you remember, Pep said, I don't want a massive squad to keep everyone unhappy with me, which is the whole reason Sterling, Gabber, Zinchenko all left. because he couldn't promise them the game time they wanted. They weren't prepared to sit on the bench anymore. They wanted. That's true. Tell me where that's a lie, because all three have said it.
Martin,
Are they all lying?
You're not even letting me answer the question.
No,
so
because you're nodding your head at me going, no.
Because I don't agree with you. All right. Simple
Right,
as
so
that.
all three of them are lying.
Martin, you're not even letting me talk. So
Right,
either
okay,
let me talk and say my
You
response,
talk.
otherwise.
I'm going to get a quote from Pep Up about it. You
Oh,
talk.
Jesus. Right. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying they're lying, Martin, but what I am saying is that they didn't have a future. Okay. It was quite clear that they weren't going to get yes to game time, but they weren't good enough to stay at City. Okay. Other players came in, and that's the end of that as far as I'm concerned. My original point that I was trying to make is that you need, in the modern era now of Premier League, not only European football, but you need to have a strong bench. And these players now, as Pat alluded, they play so many games that you've got to rotate. So I think these players will get the game time because we rotate our players so much. And every player that comes into City knows the way Guardiola plays. And if you want to play for the best team, in the Premier League right now, and you want to play for the best manager in the league right now, you accept those terms. Haaland has accepted those terms. He knew that he's not going to play every single game, as much as I'm sure he probably wants to. And I'm sure the same was said to Calvin Phillips, that when you come in, you're not going to replace anybody. You're going to come in and you're going to rotate. Obviously, that hasn't happened, but that would have been the plan. The same with Grealish. You're going to come in, but you may be coming at 100 million, but you're still going to be that player that is not always going to play every game. That's just not how it works anymore, Martin. Okay, so with the likes of Bellingham, I think Patrick's right. I think if he comes in, he will go on the bench sometimes because you need to be able to rotate. He's a young guy. He's 19. He's still got a lot to develop. And you have to remember how many players that come in, the likes of Grealish, the likes of Mahrez, that come in that don't adapt in the first season. Okay? Are you telling me Bellingham comes in, has a stinker for his first few games, and then what? He can't go on the bench?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there's certain players. There's a big difference between bench players or squad players as well. Let's call them squad players. We won't I won't demeanour them by calling them that. You mentioned about the squad size. Thursday night, we had the Harlem Globetrotters on the bench. Squad this year is actually pretty decent with the emergence of Rico Lewis and Cole Palmer coming through, because we got Akanji as well. So we were actually okay. Now, I get players aren't going to play every game. Haaland's going to play 90% of games. That's just fact of where we're at. He's going to play 90% of the games. So KDB, bar an injury and a little bit of form, he's going to play most games, especially the big ones. Edison, same. I think there's 3 or 4 players that do play majority of games. Grealish, Gundogan, surprisingly enough, has made 26 appearances this season. 26. You've got Grealish on 24. So there are certain players that are generally starting nucleus. He's starting boys. Now, Grealish, because he loves Grealish, talks about Grealish every bloody press conference about, starting to think he's got a love letter going on with him. But I think if we were talking lesser players coming in the summer, I'd go, yeah, I sort of get that. I would agree with you. But because of the profile of the players, the wages they're going to be on, and the fee you're going to have to drop, I think it's very hard to rotate. It depends what you mean by rotate as well. Are we talking Carabao Cup 3rd and 4th round? Fine, that's rotation. But the majority of the time, they're going to play within the Premier League. This is the problem. It's like Grealish. You can't pay a guy 300 grand a week and bench him. You get your owner on the back going, excuse me, I'm paying this guy 300 grand a week on a 5-year deal to sit on a bench. No thanks. I want to get money from my book here, sunshine. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, I think
again that also comes down to the 3 players that left at the end of last season. What was the main reason they all left?
Because they weren't playing and they wanted to leave.
No, they were offered a bigger salary. They were offered a bigger salary than what we were going to offer them, and that's gonna happen. That's
Can I ask where you've all got this? Because I've literally got the quotes from Pep and nothing about that.
What about being paid more money?
Sterling's on more money at Chelsea.
Yeah,
Gabriel Jesus is on more than twice as much as what he was at City.
Yeah,
and Zinchenko, I think, has gone from he was only on about 40K a week. I think he's now 6 figures.
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola,
it's going to go full circle. There are going to be players that we're just not going to be offered the salary to, and as a result, we have to look at bolstering, strengthening elsewhere.
No, I'm just listen. It's your opinions. I don't know where we've got this.
Yeah.
I don't know where this Sterling, Jesus, and Zinchenko. That seems to have took another tail. That because the actual quotes were because Pep came out and did a massive interview in Spanish saying, "I can't keep this squad happy. I couldn't do it. I had players banging on. They wanted to go. They weren't playing." And he name dropped Gabby, he name dropped Zinchenko and Sterling. We know what happened.
But
Sterling was
for example, since those players left, they've played every game for their new club.
Yeah,
played
and that was the thing. Wasn't about.
Yeah,
and like Pep said, they asked to leave. They asked to go, so they went.
Yeah.
I think also too. It's just the fact that it's a new challenge and their legacy. They'll walk away. They'll walk away at the end of their career, even if they don't win anything else with their new clubs. They'll walk away saying, "I'm a 4-time Premier League champion." That's pretty big. That's pretty big to wait at the end of your career and say, "Yeah, I won a Premier League 4 times."
I mean, I don't mind. We can agree to disagree. You think we'll go back to wingers. I don't, and it's all opinions. That's absolutely fine.
Oh yeah, of course.
I just can't see this style of play this season continuing next season, given the fact that we've got Erling Haaland there and Alvarez as well too. I just think
nearly 30 goals.
Yeah. But that's
the problem.
But that's the thing. That's what I said. I alluded to on yesterday's show. I said I can't wait for next season because I think we'll see more playmaker sort of style of goals rather than just tapping merchant goals from Erling Haaland. And I think if he gets that service, whether it's from the wingers, whether it's we reshape the midfield, I don't know. But I am really excited.
It's like that. The first goal yesterday was De Bruyne.
Yeah.
Chip over, header.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not always going to be able to do that, Martin. You're going to need a different game plan. And I just feel that you need something different. And to have that pace on the wings is just something different that you can give Haaland. And also, Martin, we did have a striker for nearly 3 seasons, okay, with Aguero's injury. Why did we buy a striker then? Of the irk of Haaland? Do you know what I mean?
That was the thing Pep said. We were going to have to change. We were going to have to change everything, and we have.
Yeah, we have.
I think a little bit of this year, and I'm not saying you two, say everyone is what I generally hear of. I think people feel the sexiness of the football's disappeared a bit, and they want this quick. We didn't have these quick banging wingers last season. You go back to last season, we weren't bombing down wings, putting balls across left, right, and centre.
No, I get that, but we certainly had a much quicker tempo of play. Our tempo was a lot quicker, much quicker. Yeah.
But I just think we've got to realise things have changed. This is Pep's way of getting Haaland in. This is his way. I don't think
for this season, I agree with you, Mike. For this season, I do. I think you're right. For this season,
I
because
think
of the
you're going
players
to need
he's
to
got.
clear out of about 4 or 5 midfielders then to do the 2 wingers job.
I think that's a bit dramatic. I mean, I just feel that you are going to see certain players leave. I think you are going to see certain players like Gundo maybe just sign a 1-year extension but not play as much. I think KDB can only play a certain amount of games as Pat alluded to as well. So there will be opportunities for players to come in, and you've got to have, like I said before, that rotation, but you've also got to have that hunger because, as Pep has said himself this season, some of these players have just not got the hunger anymore. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be able to bring in fresh people to come in and rejuvenate that squad, and that's only going to happen if you bring in the young, talented players. Because if you lose out on Bellingham, okay, KDB, he drops off another form next season, and Gundo doesn't play as much, and Bernardo's gone, who's in that midfield? You've got Rodri, you've got Phillips who isn't playing well, and then you're going to have to look at, like we said before, Grealish and Foden. That midfield hasn't got that, what is right now with Kevin De Bruyne and the likes of Gundo. You've got to plan for the future, and I feel that the only way you're going to be able to do that is by bringing in Bellingham for that new level of service that is going to come when KDB goes.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
First things first, the Bellingham signing is probably the most crucial one, because you're effectively restocking for the future. Effectively long-term replacement for two great midfielders that we currently have in De Bruyne and Gundogan. Whether we go ahead, with the idea of wingers, I like the idea of going with wingers and seeing how Pep's going to reinvent the team, or see what sort of upgrades or how he changes compared to what we've done this season and effectively the false 9 seasons as well. But yeah, the first things first, the midfield needs to be done, and then I think once we find out by the end of this summer whether he's decided to go with wingers, then it's basically say, okay, well this is the route, or this is the route that Pep is wanting to go down, and we'll have to just wait and see. I think this summer is going to be the most exciting summer. Not just because of who we're going to buy, but I think of what pieces we put on the chessboard to see what style of play we are going to play. I'm really, really looking forward to what we're doing. I personally want to see wingers. I really do. But I think the simple fact of the matter is that the priority is midfield, getting Bellingham pretty much at whatever cost, and then we go on from there. What the club decide to do, what Cheeky and Ferran decide to do from there will determine. We'll basically come back to this conversation. We'll probably come back to this conversation in 6 months' time.
Yeah, of course we will.
And say, okay, this is what he's going to do. Let's see what happens. Get a comfy chair and enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Where I think about the winger is, we've currently got 10 people who can play midfield. 10.
Yeah. Which to me feels like that's an aftermath of the false 9.
But you've got Riyad Mahrez, new contracts, Calvin Phillips, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, who we think is going to leave, Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, Jack Grealish, Ilkay Gundogan, and then we're going to add Bellingham in. You're going to need a lot more than just Bernardo to leave to get 2 wingers in. That's all my point is here. You're going to have too many unhappy midfielders. 10 into 3 don't go. 10 into 3 just doesn't, even with a squad rotation, 10 into 3 doesn't go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, you might. The maths isn't wrong. I think it's just I think with the likes of Gundo signing, if he does sign a 1-year extension, it's him having a lot less game time. I think we talked about it earlier between me, Patrick, and Rich, saying that we could see him going into kind of looking into the management role even further, being next to Pep and learning a lot more. So that's something that we can see. And then it's it may be that he doesn't. It may be that he actually does go. You have to accept that, with a year left, not even that now, but he may go as well.
We just signed PERRONE as well. So that is 10 without Bellingham.
Well, PERRONE is one of those signings where I think we'll see what happens, because he is a CDM. So it may be that Kevin Phillips goes and he's his replacement. So you have to take that on board.
It was something I looked at before and I went, Jesus, Pep's literally doing what he said he always wanted to do. I want 11 midfielders. He's literally building to do it. I get now, and the problem is with this now, where you can get away with it is you Grealish and Mahrez to the wings, you Foden to the wing. That's where you can get away with it and keep people happy a bit more. Trouble is, you're bringing a Leao, you bring in throw me another side winger.
Saka.
They're going to go straight in. And what do you do with Foden? Because Rodri's going to play. So you've only got 2 midfielders, 2 spots available.
Well, again, that just comes back to what Ozzy and I were saying, where I think next season we're going to see a lot more midfield appearances from Grealish and Foden.
Yeah,
and that's not going to be week in, week out. The midfield will be rotated. One day it will be Grealish and Foden in midfield. The next day, 3 days' time, it'll be Grealish and Bellingham and Rodri, and then it'll be Kevin De Bruyne, and then it'll be Again, we're alluding to these signings are based on what the club's intentions are at the end of every season. Are we going to be playing every 3 days?
We don't know, do we? At the moment, we're all presuming we're going back to wingers.
It's speculation, isn't it?
Maybe. I think a lot of it, what it is, and listen, I agree. Under signing Sterling, it was bloody electric. I get it.
And I'd love to see that again or something.
I know exactly that's the thing, Pat. We want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to. I just think
this chat is just alluding to our personal preferences. What the club's preferences are going to be complete opposite. But these are our desires, and we accept what's going to happen. It is what it is, and hopefully it is effective. But our personal opinion, hopefully our personal opinion will mold into what the club's intentions are, and hopefully it ends up with the same result with a great amount of success.
Mike, can I just ask you just a question, because I just love to hear your opinion on this. Me and Pat are obviously wanting the wingers back. Do you know what I mean? And I think Rich also wants that as well. You have said that you don't think that Pep's going to do that, and I get your opinion and I respect it, but you haven't answered to say what you would like to see. Would you like to see wingers come back in, or do you prefer the current system that's in place?
Yeah. And I'm not saying teaming up on your mum, but also too, as you said, like, we can't bring the wingers back, but we've brought the inverted fullbacks back this season. We've effectively redone, in a way, we've redone Pep's first season. So the whole wingers thing is I have no problems bringing it back. I think it'll be different because Pep's is never predictable. But I just think we'll see another version of that. I think we'll see a Centurion season 2.0. We'll see a different style of winger play or front three or front two or whatever you want to. Yeah,
I'd probably prefer a hybrid of in between if I could get it.
Yeah.
The problem is that, and I only noticed it the other day when I sat and looked at the squad. I went, Jesus, how many midfielders have we got? And I know the versatile, but we get away with it, like I said, because Grealish, Mahrez, and Foden, we can dump out wide and sort of get away with it a little bit more. But then when you start putting Foden into the midfield or Grealish into the midfield, even with Bernardo going, and then you're giving Gundogan a new contract, you're like, hang on. Well,
can I have a little caveat to that, Martin, just to that question? Because you haven't actually mentioned really what players you'd like to see come in this summer. Because you haven't, I mean, you said about players leaving, but you haven't actually answered that question really either for us. So not only you've said that you'd like to see a hybrid, but then who do we sign this summer? Who do you want to see come in?
Me, I think there'll be 3 players come in. I think Bellingham could be one. I think Gavardio could be one. And
I still feel like Guardiola will only come if 1 or 2 of our current centre backs go.
Yeah,
because then that's 6. Because then that's 6 centre backs.
Left back.
Yeah,
but then who goes, Martin? You're looking at Cancelo or Ake, aren't you?
I think Gomez goes, and I think Cancelo goes. I think Gomez and Cancelo both go out the door.
I still feel Gomez could go in the next week.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Gomez to be here next week. Actually, I'm expecting and I do expect. I think Cancelo's just at the end of the road. I think he's at the end of the road.
So who's your third?
My third have changed on in Aaron. I really have, because I did want a winger. So, in prep for the show, I went looking at all the midfielders.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night. Martin, I'm going to say, just before you say it, right, you've turned around and said Bellingham, and a minute ago you were fighting and saying, how are you going to get Bellingham in the squad?
No, you're not getting what I'm saying.
Head is gone.
No. Listen, unlike you, I do a bit of prep on these shows.
Come on, then.
I do a bit of research. No, but then I sat there and then I looked at the 10 midfielders. Then I looked at Pep's comments, looked at different games, and I thought, he's changed. He's totally changed. He's gone to this 3-box-3 stuff because it's all about control and it's all about possession and it's all about hunger, tackling. Look at Grealish. He's got Grealish up and down that wing like absolute. Looks like I'm expecting him to be drug tested at some point. The amount of running he's getting up and down doing. I don't think you'll get that out of her. I think do you know what I think soured him on wingers a little bit? Was Sterling and Sane. I think it soured him. I think Sane's lack of a work rate bugged him. I think it really bugged him. Because I keep saying that I've been at all the games I've been at, I've never seen a player get bollocks more than Sane got bollocks off Pep.
Wouldn't that come down more to the player more than the
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And Sterling and him they were oil and water by the end. They just did not get on.
Yeah,
I think it still comes down to the player, though, Martin. As Pat just said, I think with Sane, I think he pretty much had this attitude that it was his way, not Pep's way. And I think with Sterling, I think he just wanted to be the main man. And obviously he went to Chelsea to get a bigger pay package and to be that main man. And look where it's got him.
I suppose the big thing with using Rafael Leao as an example is you want to know that if we're going to sign this winger or something like that, if we do choose to go down that road, you want to be sure that this is a sort of player that is just going to be in awe of the fact that he's going to be in a Pep, managed under Pep, in a Pep style with these sort of players. Where if Pep's going to say to Leao, "I want you to jump," his immediate response is going to be how high. You're not going to have clubhouse troubles with him. You're not going to have issues with him about not playing every 3 days and being fair to him and fair to his teammates as well. You just don't want a Sane effect from the stories that we heard of what he was like off the pitch. On the pitch, he was fantastic, but on the pitch, off the pitch, there were issues there. I think, his ego got the better of him. Because we've always said, every player has an ego. The question is how well are they able to control that ego determines the quality of player that they are. And for example, like someone like a Rafael Leao, like I'm sure, the guy probably has a bit of an ego himself. He's earned that. He's earned the right to be like that because his stats and his figures for the last 2 seasons in Serie A have been absolutely spectacular. He's part of the reason why AC Milan was able to win the first Serie A title in over 10 years. They were a very good team. And I think, this is, and as I said, I'm just using him primarily as an example. We have no idea who the club is intending on bringing in, if they are going to bring in wingers. But I would like to think that the main reason we sign players, not just because of the talent and what they offer on the pitch as well, is that they're very good in the clubhouse as well. You want that team cohesive unit. You want them all to be gelling and playing for each other like they're a brotherhood as much as they are a football team.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, Pat, I feel that since we had Sane and Sterling coming in at that time, I think City and Pep are looking at players more as in not just on the field, but what they are as characters. Do you know what I mean? Behind the scenes, what they're like. It seems that City want to bring in the right kind of players. They're not just going to spend silly money on players that, like, the likes of Neymar and stuff like that. Very talented, but
they don't sign players for the name. They sign players for the person.
They never have. But what I'm saying is they still want the characters of type of young guys who have got, yes, maybe the attitude and the arrogance that they're brilliant, but also they're humble enough to listen to Pep and to listen to the other.
See, Rich has been naughty here because Rich knows the exact same thing I know. So I don't know why he's piping up with that rubbish. He knows 100% they had a massive row and ball out. He knows they did, the land little son.
So who's your third player then, Martin?
I think it depends who goes out. I'm not sure if it's going to be a huge overhaul like we're all expecting. Because I think we'd have gone for a right back, but Rico Lewis probably changed that. Gvardiol is my left back because he plays that for RB Leipzig. That's the only reason I can think, and he's versatile. Pep likes
he's not a natural left back though. I alluded to
plays
earlier in the
like
show.
that
He's
for
got
Andy
it. He's a bit. He reminds me a bit of Danilo in terms of he is versatile across the entire back four and can fit in the sixth role.
But he doesn't actually play centre back for RB though, does he? Pat? He plays virtually left back for them, and has done for a
But
while
he naturally he was developed as a centre back, but he can play on the left side as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, that's a fact, Martin. He knows for a fact what he's doing, the little sod. Son off, Rich. You get to work, you sod man. You know what you're doing. Listen, no, that was it. I'm probably going to say 2 that I can think of. And it all depends who goes out. No, it depends who goes out.
Well, you've got to have somebody in mind.
I'm going to throw a player at you, Ozzy.
No, but you've been thinking about.
You want me to say a winger?
No, I don't want you to say winger. I want you to say who you think realistically is coming in, because we talked about this, Martin, a few. We've been talking about this for weeks doing this show.
Yeah, but I've changed it. People can change. Bloody hell, he's in a right one here, isn't he? Say what I wanted. Say what I wanted to say. Say it now. Listen, I just think I didn't. Till I honestly sat back, it shocked me. No, it did. It genuinely changed my mind and shocked me the amount of midfielders we had. I was like, bloody hell. Didn't even realise. Now, and that's why I think that there could be some shocks out the door. I'm probably, and not that I find him bad or I think he's an awful player. Part of me thinks Calvin Phillips might be the big surprise out. I just don't think it's
just
so
work. Uncharacteristic of the club.
No, I know it is. But do you know the funny thing is, Pat?
I get what you're saying, because it's just.
Do you know what it is?
What's he offered besides the injuries? I get that, but yeah,
I've never come out of a stadium. Everyone, when you come out of the stadium, everyone goes, "It's a first year. Give him a year. Give it." Everyone does that. Coming out the stadium, nobody's saying that about Calvin. They're all like, "Don't think this is going to work." They've automatically gone. No, because even in the 15-minute cameos, he's not doing it. He looks lost.
That's the fans, Martin. You've got to think about what Pep is thinking and what the owners are thinking. Well, we don't know that. But you hang on a minute. So what you're saying is, when it suits your little winger argument, it's what these, no, we're doing it. But when I say, no, it's what the club want. Bloody hell, talk about agenda.com here.
No, I think
and I'm going for it.
Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, the fans are right to, have every right to their opinions and that. And I think it's that element of Calvin Phillips is a, ready-made Premier League player. And there is that element of, that part of like, he should hit the ground running. He's already familiar with the Premier League and that sort of stuff. This is such an unpredictable season. I said this on our podcast. I said this on your show at the start of the season. Given the World Cup, given the injuries and, the fact that, their shoulder problem came out of the blue and things like that, more than ever, more than any other English player who comes in the Pep system, we have to allow Calvin Phillips that one season, this season, and maybe even a chunk of the second season too, just to bed in and get right his wrongs and make sure the injury histories are behind him as well.
He's older than Rodri.
Well, by a few months. They're both 26.
And the fact he's 27 in her. And then the fact is, and I know you're all going to say, well, we don't know. Gundogan's not going to sign a contract to play no football. He could quite easily go to Barcelona and probably play a year or two. He's going to play some football. So it just makes me think there's something not quite. I don't know what it is. I've never had this feeling about a player. Never, ever had this feeling about a player. Ever. And I like him. I think he's top guy. I don't know why. I've just got a real weird feeling that I just don't. I think he's an elite. I don't know why.
Won't we?
I don't know why. I can't put my face. But when I see him, even when Grealish was learning, I got a little bit of excitement when he was just, even Rodri, everyone. Grealish, I'm dead at the minute with it. There's nothing that's inspired, not Grealish. There's nothing that's getting me with Phillips going, oh, there's a player there. There's something there. Southampton, I'm like, what? Am I watching?
Martin, are your thoughts? Is the reason your thoughts of that part of the your thoughts about Phillips, what you just alluded to there? Does the fact that he came out earlier in the season and basically said like, yeah, look, I understand, I am the second string number 6 here. Do you feel like there's an element of like saying that no, mate, you should be competing with Rodri for this role? Don't just allude that you're the number 2. Like, get out there, be competitive.
I feel as though he's won a raffle and landed in a City shirt.
Yeah, won a lottery.
And I think he thinks that at the minute. Do you remember what Grealish said? Grealish said, "I went from being a shark in a lake. I'm now a tadpole in a bloody ocean when I got here." But eventually he said, "No, I'm going to do something about this, turn it around," and he did something.
Yeah,
and Calvin.
Maybe you can say the same thing about Phillips, and there's like, Phillips,
he is.
But
where I get the worry, because like this PERRONE I've just read now, apparently PERRONE came to City because he said, I will sign for a club who do not loan me out. I don't want to be loaned out for the rest of the season. If you're signing me, I want to be given the opportunity to come into the first team.
And he still might be given that opportunity.
No, exactly.
Because Phillips is injured, and
But then that's my worry. Then Ozzy,
can he play left back?
And on that note,
it's not the greatest.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. I think Pat has just ended the show.
Wanting to do it. Gundogan's going to sign a new contract, Sean, it looks like, mate. Bernardo might not even leave yet. We're all guessing Bernardo's out the door, but if no bugger comes paying any money...
But it's fun to guess.
Yeah. He's going nowhere.
It's
and
a
then
lot
we're
of fun.
11 midfielders and we don't need to buy anybody. Yeah. And then we are screwed. Anyway, I just think it's great to say. I think I'm with Pat and you and Rich. I think there's going to be a very intriguing summer coming up. I even think this week may be intriguing. That we might 1 or 2 EDS go out the door. That we might, You mentioned Cole Palmer. I do think Cole Palmer needs a loan. I don't see how he gets in right now. I don't see where he gets in right now.
Martin, do you kind of feel like this January transfer window right now? I mean, there was a little bit of activity with an example like Trossard going to Arsenal and things like that. But do you think the fact that it feels relatively quiet, this transfer window, we may see something kick off between now and the end of this week, or the end of
from City or from in general?
Possibly from City, possibly. We haven't done a big statement signing in January for
I don't think anyone comes in January. I think the biggest one will be either Carlos Bojos leaves or Cole Palmer and didn't go out on loan. I love Cole Palmer, but like I said, he needs a loan, but it has to be to a Premier League club. Don't want to see no Championship BS. If he's going to go out on loan,
what about a Championship club that's competing for
has to go to no, for me. If Cole Palmer's going out, he goes out to Premier League club, a Villa, Brighton, or whatever, and Everton. Do you know what? Throw Cole Palmer into Everton. He'd give him a go down the wings.
Yeah.
I just don't like to see young EDS lads sat on the bench doing jack. Sadly. I think it just kills the career. But anyway, yeah, Ozzy, wrap it up, mate.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been an interesting show. I think we've had some really good debates. And just to say, I do respect your opinions. Of course I do.
That's to all the answer, Noah.
And I think everyone's opinion is valid. I just hope that me.
I agree with ours.
Yeah. I just hope me and
22 mids.
Yeah. I just hope me and Pat.
New centre back for the remainder of the season, Tony Cruz.
Bloody hell, Abdallah's thrown this in. We're going to activate Lavia's buyback. Jesus, let's get another CDM in. Anyone else? Tell you, Calvin Phillips is screwed if we go and activate that back. Let's get a dozy back. Jesus Christ. Say it, it's like
James Trafford
FIFA.
replacing
Anyone want a game of
Anderson
FIFA? FIFA, anyone? We'll do a bit of Dream Team. Let's go. Jesus. We're back on Wednesday. We're going to do an Arsenal preview on Wednesday night. Plus, we're going to do a bit of a Q&A as well. Ozzy can't be with us Wednesday. I don't think Pat can. You might see a whole brand new panel.
No, that's Thursday morning for
Thursday
us.
morning for you.
I'll be on, and then we'll probably keep you around for our podcast too.
All right, so you're coming on Wednesday night, Thursday morning for you.
Yeah. It was
sweet.
It was,
Alan's back.
Oh, in that case, no, I picked up overtime at work.
I I've got to speak to him. Might have an Arsenal fan join us as well. Ooh. Jesus, I don't know if I want this guy on. He's going to cause a right rupture if he comes in.
Yeah.
Jesus. We're going to win the league. You know we're not.
Yeah.
Listen, it is FA Cup. We'll have a chat about FA Cup. But for Wednesday night, get some Q&As in. We'll have 20 minutes at the end of your Q&As. And, I think it'd be good. And then I'm going to try and sort out this intro. I've got 2 hours spare now before I've got to go see a doctor. Not for me. I'm not going to see any doctor. But I've got 2 hours and hopefully get that sorted. No, my mum, I need the toilet. Thanks, Noah. Appreciate that. Anyway, I've got to say, Ozzy, thank you for stepping in tonight, mate. Appreciate that.
No, you're welcome anytime, mate. Thanks, Pat, for coming on. Always a pleasure seeing you. And I won't see you, obviously, Thursday for you, but I'll catch you when I catch you.
Yeah,
go and check out the early birds. Did you find out about the algorithm before you go?
No. And deliberately, I didn't.
Good answer, Pat. Good answer.
Yeah.
Is it me or has Pat got Jack Grealish calves?
And on that note, we definitely are going.
Just before we do,
good night, everybody. Good
night,
everybody.
See something wrong with this script? It's a Manchester City show. He's in Sydney, Australia, but he's wearing a New York City top. Are you just covering the whole City brand there, Pat?
Yeah, mate. I'm an internationalist. If I had my way, I've got a global passport. You know me. I spend more time with my passport in my back pocket than I do my car keys.
Do you know what I never did? I never put this on the bleeding screen. Anyway, thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday. I apologize for me. I've had a bit of a disaster of a night, but yes, keep smashing that like. We are over 1,000. Adverts will probably appear. We're just in the middle of monetizing and got to go through all checks and everything at the minute.
Manscaped Martin.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah. Manscaped Martin.
No. I'm not shaving no kiwi on bloody camera. No kiwi getting shaved on camera here, sunshine.
Mate, you probably trying to shave a light globe or something.
Tell you what though, we get it with Ozzy's beard.
Not going anywhere, mate.
Just imagine that ball trimmer going across his beard. Anyway, right.
Well, look at the colour of it, mate. I'd rather we got over sponsored by Just for Men. Don't worry, mate. I'm sure I've got a few bits. My blonde covers it up brilliantly.
Is your show only live? No, it's recorded, mate, and then goes out.
Yeah.
Well,
SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, Sean.
Are you on Google yet?
No.
I've been telling everyone you're on Google Podcasts. All right, maybe skip that one.
Yeah. But I'll have a word with Danny because I'm sure he's looking at other platforms to get us on.
Yeah. And you're going to see us do a lot more interaction between each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, looking forward to it. I'm hopefully going to get Danny on at some point because he's a big lover of Calvin Phillips. You think I've said something bad? Jesus, you ain't seen out yet till you hear Danny crying out loud.
Yeah.
Oof.
He's like Alan with Otamendi.
Good night, everybody.
Welcome.
Take care. We'll see you Wednesday. Ozzy's a superstar. Rich is a superstar. Pat's just a pain in the ass. See you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.